I got fed up fooling with that masking tape on that aileron. Oh, it's a nice day today. Well, I took that outside, stuck it on the board out there out in the sunshine, and got a bucket of methyl ethyl ketone out and some rags and a wire brush, a little stainless steel wire brush, and went over it and got that all cleaned up. Now the only problem with that is it took off that primer, the paint, a lot of it, which is what I didn't want to do. I can continue working on it now and get that leading edge off of there and then get that hinge and that horn off of there. I'm going to call the mechanic tonight and see whether or not I can put a patch on that spar. It's not cracked all the way through. It's just got cracks in it right there where that hinge attaches. I want to talk to him and see if maybe we can just put a doubler on that, patch it up, and see if we can't make that work. Got the leading edge all off of there. Feel like I was working on Cessnas again with all the drilling out all the rivets, but got them all drilled out, got the leading edge off. I guess I have to take these two ribs out here and then take some rivets out in this hinge and control horn, and I can better see what I got there. I got that hinge and the control horn off of there, and you can see that's pretty rusty, but it's not pitted. It's heavy surface rust, but it's not too bad. So I'm going to take that down, sandblast it, clean it up, and see what it looks like once I get it cleaned up. And the hinge is the same way. Actually, it's not as bad. It of course doesn't stick up out in the weather on the low section of it like this one does. This spar is cracked out down here. It comes through where they cut it out here. It's notched out where that control horn goes down through there, and then up here on the top where these notches come out around on this radius of the bend. It was distorted a little bit. I think that's from the ailerons flopping up and down from the wind damage basically. But there's no corrosion on it. The spar actually looks pretty good except for that cracked out section there. I've already got most of it disassembled here. I may go ahead and take these other two leading edges off and take these other two hinges off of there and clean those up as long as I'm at it. I went ahead and took the rest of those leading edges off. Yeah, I'm kind of glad I did, I guess. The hinges aren't in as bad a shape as I thought they would be. There's rust on them, but in between the hinges and this spar was not very pretty. This one on this outboard end has got some corrosion on it. In between where the hinge was and the spar, it could be cleaned up, but that one on the inboard end there, that section of the spar, the corrosion's pretty deep on it. It looks pretty good on the inside there, on the side away from where that hinge was attached, but underneath the hinge it's not very nice. I think I'll still call a mechanic tomorrow and have a talk with him, but now it's a little more involved than what I thought it was going to be. I'm glad I pulled those off. I don't like the looks of that corrosion on there. The ribs are in good shape, the leading edges were in good shape, the nose ribs were in good shape, the trailing edge is in good shape. It's just underneath those hinges. And you can see how black underneath this hinge is here. The hinge itself is not too bad, but in between the hinge and that leading edge, or that spar there, was pretty rough. Well, I've gotten into this thing a lot farther than I expected. I came up last night, took that other two leading edges off, the outboard and inboard length of the leading edges off, and took these two hinges off. And I'm kind of glad that I did. I figured that as long as I had it apart as far as I did anyway, I might as well take these hinges off and clean them up too and get everything all fixed up on it. And I'm glad that I did. This inboard end here, where this hinge is on there, that's pretty corroded underneath there. It's not imminent failure, but it would be failure sometime in the near future, or not too distant future. It'd probably get through this season just fine, but I want to avoid having an aileron fail on me in the middle of the season, and it wouldn't be much fun if it failed when I was 3 or 4 miles upstream, 700 feet in some turbulence and stuff with the trees and the mountains and the canyon around. It wouldn't be much fun to have an aileron fail on me up there. Well, anyway, I'm glad I got that apart. But that made me think of what options that I wanted to take on here. So I spent the morning doing a little research on this. I looked up the blueprint to see what I could do there, and I could make a new one of these spars. It's just simple bent metal. They call it half hard metal, but it's equivalent of 2024 T3 032, and it's 102 inches long. I don't have a brake that could bend that, but I do have a friend that has a brake that could bend that. But I don't have a 102 inch length of aluminum, and I could get some, but again, that's cost quite a bit to get that shipped up here. So that option is kind of the lowest one on the list here. So I was looking at replacing the spar. Well, I was looking at replacing the aileron, and I can buy a new aileron from Dakota Cub for $840, or I can get one from Univair for about $1,500. Again, it's 102 inches long, so it'd have to be shipped UPS, and it would cost probably $200 or more to get it shipped. So the Dakota Cub one is a little more than half of the one from Univair. I've bought parts from both Univair and Dakota Cub. I haven't always been real happy with the stuff I got from Univair. The stuff that I got from Dakota Cub has been a premium quality product from what I've seen. I got the fuel selector valve and the trim system for the airplane, for the elevator trim system there, the jack screw and the pulleys and all of that stuff from them. And what I received from them is a real good product. But it would cost me an arm and a leg to get it shipped up here. I don't know how long it would take. So the other option from them, from both parties, is to replace the spar. And the spar is about $87, I think it was, from Univair, and $44 from Dakota Cub. But again, it's 102 inches long and got the same problem with the shipping on it. So the third option is to repair this, to put a splice on this. I need to splice it here where it's cracked, where this center hinge point is and this control horn goes. And I probably should put a splice doubler over this section back here on this inboard hinge where it's corroded there, just for good measure. I'd probably put one here on this outboard one, just because I've got it apart and can do it. I looked at the 4313 and I called the mechanic who's supervising this, and he agreed that it's a viable option. This spar is right on the hinge point, the hinge line of this aileron, so it's not going to affect the balance of the aileron any. So that's what I decided to do, is to go ahead and repair it. And I decided it'd be a lot easier to do, to put patches in there with it off from the rest of everything than it would be to try to fight the rest of that trailing edge or the rest of that body of that aileron. So I went ahead and disassembled it further. Now I'm not going to take these ribs out of the trailing edge. I'm going to leave them in there for reference so that I can tell where everything goes. So I'll go ahead and dig out some metal and fabricate up some doublers for this and get it patched up. I took all the hinges down to the shop, sandblasted them, got them all cleaned up, and powder coated them with some corrosion resistant primer. And they're not in too bad a shape. This control horn here has got some erosion in it, some pits and stuff in it. I got everything cleaned up pretty good, so it's going to be good for the near future. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and call Dakota Cub and order a new spar. And those leading edges on there have some pits in them and stuff, some corrosion. They're fine for now. They'll probably be fine for 20 years, but I think I'm going to go ahead and order some new ones. I'm going to order a spar for this aileron. I think I'll go ahead and order a spar for the other aileron, and I'll order the stuff for the flaps too. And then I can rebuild those this coming year. I can get all this stuff through this season. There's nothing wrong with the rest of this. These ribs are fine. This trailing edge here is fine. The only reason I had trouble with that trailing edge on that flap is because it got crunched in the snow. And this would probably last for as long as I need it, but I really don't like having it like that. We'll see how it works out. But I've got a friend that is shipping up a bunch of stuff from down south here the end of this month, and I can get that stuff sent to him state to state, and there's not a big premium for shipping to Alaska that way, and then he can bring it up here in his container with the rest of his stuff, and it won't cost me much for that.